Hey everybody, it's Blake with the MangaReloaded podcast, and in this video, I'm planning to do a follow-up to my previous video where I discussed the new features of the Shonen Jump app. Well, now that I've had a little under a week to play around with it, and I know that doesn't seem like very long, but in that time I've read the last 5 volumes of Assassination Classroom, so I feel like I've had enough time with it to make a fair judgment of it. I am going to be discussing a lot of my observations of it, and to be fairly honest, I'm going to be talking about a lot of my criticisms of it because there are a decent amount of good things in it, and honestly, I'm going to try really hard not to mention anything that I talked about in my previous video. I know I asked a few general questions about it. I'm going to try to answer those questions that I had, and also just really talk about things that I've noticed in it. So starting off, one observation that I've made is that when you download content to your device, you can only have the content on there for 7 days. So that kind of answered my question of, well, can I just literally download all 10,000 chapters to my device and just read them whenever? No, you can't, because you can only have them on there for a week at a time, which is perfectly reasonable in my opinion. I know most apps that let you download content to them, including Netflix, only have a limited amount of time that you can have them on there, so totally makes sense, but just wanted to inform everyone of that. Now, the next observation that I made was actually found unintentionally while editing this video, and it's the fact that sometimes when you're scrolling through the different pages, the app likes to stutter, and I can't really think of a better word to describe it. As you can see in the video, every so often, as you're turning the page, it'll catch, and it'll just, it won't smoothly turn the page, and I guess to some people that could be a plus. You have to manually turn it yourself, but it can be a little annoying, and as you can see, it'll eventually catch up, and it will start to scroll regularly, but it was just a weird little catch that I found while editing this video, and I'd encountered it before, and I honestly assumed it was just something that happened as it was starting up, but yeah, just a little observation there. Next is just kind of an interesting little quirk of this app, and it's, as you can see, when you reach the end of the chapter, in a lot of other apps that I've used, it'll just take you to the next chapter. It'll load that up. But with this app, it actually inserts an ad. I guess there's no real better word to describe it. It inserts an ad for that volume that you are currently reading, where you could purchase the full volume to own outright on the app. I don't really consider this feature to be a particular positive or negative. I think it's an interesting way to break up the chapters, and it's a good way to keep track of what volume you're in if that's something you're concerned with, but it also has the potential to just slow down your reading pace, so you could take it or leave it. Okay, so my next issue, and this may just be an issue for me, but as you can see in the video, it's not me constantly reopening the chapter and backing out on purpose. What I'm trying to do is I'm trying to click the little arrow that'll download it to my phone. And the problem I'm running into is that the arrow is not picking up the fact that I'm trying to click it. So it takes me 4 or 5 attempts per chapter just to get it downloaded. And again, as you can see, sometimes I'll get lucky and I'll go on a streak and then it'll mess up. That by itself is not a massive issue. I mean, just sitting there clicking it, it's whatever. It's the fact that, as you can see, if you miss the arrow, then it'll automatically open up the chapter. And then to get back to where you were, you have to back out of the chapter, and then it takes you all the way back to the top of the chapter listing. So you have to get back down to where you were. And again, I know it's kind of a little petty issue, but I haven't had any previous problems with my touchscreen. I know my phone is a bit of an older model, so it's a bit smaller, but I don't have particularly large fingers, and I haven't had this problem before with touch accuracy on my screen, so I just think it's something that my viewers should be aware of. And another issue that kind of comes from that, as you can see, is that the read button is kind of pointless. Even if it is a case of, oh, I'm just missing the download button, the fact that I'm clicking in the blank space, I don't think should be opening up the chapter to be read. It should just be a case of, oh, I click the read button and then I read the chapter. But no, apparently the blank space around it also opens up the chapter, which then just leads to the question of what's the point in the read button. So I know it's kind of a little bit of a petty problem, but it's still something that I think could be fixed fairly easily, whether it just be up the touch sensitivity on the download arrow, or just a case of making it so that by clicking in the white, you aren't automatically opening the chapter. Also, it doesn't keep track of what I have already read, which kind of compounds with this issue of if it takes me back to the top of the chapter listing, then I have to scroll all the way back down. And then again, I don't have record of what I have read previously, so it's a little nitpicky, but I still think it's worth mentioning. And bouncing off of that issue, another very important to people like me who like to download their chapters is the fact that there's no way to bulk delete chapters. So literally, as you can see, I have to click them one at a time to delete each chapter individually. And then when you factor in that it's really hard to click that arrow, it just makes it a heck of a process to delete all of those chapters. And again, you can download up to 100 chapters a day. And I feel really sorry for those people who are taking Shonen Jump up on that offer and are downloading 100 chapters a day. Again, assuming that you reach your limit every single day and you keep it on there for the full 7 days, then you have 700 chapters on your device, which can really start to add up. Again, it does have that little feature on there where you can only have so much memory's worth of manga downloaded on your device, but at the same time, wouldn't it just be easier to just have a little process where I can just click, oh, I want all of these deleted, then hit delete, and it just gets rid of all of them at once? It's a very small detail, but for someone who likes to download a lot of manga, it can really be a 5-10 minute difference. Again, especially for people who have a lot on there. Just a possible update for the future. I think it's something that could be very easily fixed, unlike the next issue that I'm going to go into. And also, as I briefly touched on a little bit ago, it doesn't mark the chapters that I have already read. So if I'm reading a chapter, I decide to put my phone down and then I come back to it an hour later, a couple hours later, a day later, there's no easy way for me to tell what I've already read. Now, if you actually open up a chapter and it is a chapter that you have either started or finished previously, it'll have you where you left off. So if you finish the chapter, it'll start you at the end of the chapter. So you just have to scroll to the side and it'll go through that little volume ad in the middle screen, and then it'll take you to the next chapter. But again, if you're a few chapters back from, or your guess is off by a few chapters, then it might take you a little bit to get back to where you were. Just these tiny little things are starting to compound. But there is one really, really big issue that, in my opinion, almost makes me question the value of this app and whether it's worth getting at all. And that issue is that a lot of Jump's more prolific series are not included in that $1.99 a month price tag. Now, I know they don't outright tell you, oh, everything is included, every series is going to be included in this monthly fee, but at the same time, I feel like it's a little dirty that some of their really biggest series are not included in that. Some of the series that fall into that not included area are JoJo's Bizarre Adventure, Yu Yu Hakusho, Tokyo Ghoul, One Punch Man, and Hunter x Hunter. And there are a handful of other series that I personally am not as familiar with, but as you can see, I'm showing you everything on screen. All the series that are not included, I'm briefly highlighting. You can tell that they're not included because they don't list a chapter count. They only list a volume count, and that's because you have to buy it per volume. So you have to separately purchase those as volumes as opposed to them being included with your subscription as chapters. No, of course you don't have to worry too much because a lot of Jump's like hyper huge series like your big three, Naruto, One Piece, Bleach, of course Dragon Ball are still included in there, and also the series that are really big and still currently running in Weekly Shonen Jump, such as My Hero Academia and Promised Neverland, are also included in that chapter subscription. And some of these series that aren't included, they might not be a huge deal to you. I know most of these are older series, and most of them you might have already read. Heck, if you haven't read them, I would honestly recommend reading most of these series that aren't included, especially the ones that I listed. But at the end of the day, I feel like it's really a big deal for Jump to have some of their most prolific, high-quality series hidden behind an extra paywall after you're already paying that monthly subscription fee. I definitely see the point in it. Again, Jump still needs to make money. Having this $1.99 per month for the vast majority of their backlog of English translated content, they're not really making a lot off of it. Obviously, this is more done with the intention of bringing a wider audience to manga, or I guess better put, bringing manga to a wider audience of people and making it a more accessible medium to them. But at the end of the day, I can honestly say this might really have an impact on whether I keep my subscription to this app or not. I mean, a lot of these series were a big reason why I opted to do the subscription payment to begin with. Most notably, JoJo's Bizarre Adventure and Blue Exorcist, both series that I started and just never had a chance to finish. So there you have it. My honest thoughts on the $1.99 subscription to the Shonen Jump app. At the end of the day, it is without a doubt the most convenient and safest and most accurate way to gain access to the majority of Shonen Jump's backlog of English translated manga. And again, I specifically mentioned English translated manga because if you didn't see my previous review of this app, that is all that is currently available to be read, even with the $1.99 subscription. So yeah, I'd love to hear your thoughts on this. Is knowing these series that are not included with the Shonen Jump subscription a deterrent for you to subscribe at all? Or if you're already subscribed, is it something that may prevent you from keeping it in the future? Please let me know in the comments down below any other thoughts that you have on this Shonen Jump app, any other issues that you may have with it that I didn't cover here. Also, please let us know any other topics that you'd like us to discuss on the Manga Reloaded podcast. All right, everybody. Thanks for listening. This is Blake, signing out.